Welcome to The Little C and Me. I'm Opal McKnight Klein-Sasser, a stage 3 breast cancer overcomer who chose a different path. No chemo, no radiation, no hormone treatment. Hi, welcome to the Little C and Me podcast. My name is Opal McKnight Klein-Sasser. I'm your host. As we talk about breast cancer and destigmatizing breast cancer, today we're going to talk about counseling. And in the community that I'm from, Black people, we shy away from counseling. We think it's only Caucasian people who go counseling, and something is wrong with Caucasian people, and they're the ones who talk about mental health. But understand this, in our community, we need to talk about it. How I got to start counseling. Well, of course, when we're getting married, we go marriage counseling, and we don't see anything wrong with marriage counseling because we're getting married and it's a big step in our lives. And of course, we go marriage counseling. So I went marriage counseling. When the first marriage broke up, I went counseling again. And I told the lady, I didn't need the counseling. It's the husband who cheated on me who needed the counseling. And she said, no, the counseling is for you to deal with how to move on from a broken marriage, how to move on with your life, to pick up the pieces and just to live. And I'm telling you, I'm happy that I went to counseling. This lady, she's the head of the prayer group in Jamaica, and I was part of that prayer group. And she said that I found out that because I was so hurt, I had closed my heart. And she told me that the Lord Jesus Christ told her that I ended up closing him out of my heart because I told myself nobody will ever come this close and hurt me again. And I wept on my way back to work because I used my lunchtime to do counseling, right? Because it was just during the day that she does counseling. And that's when I did the first set of counseling. Second set of counseling I did was when my mom was dying. Now, this was 2020 and everything was everything shut down because of the COVID-19. I won't say anything further. So when they were shutting down places, and I watched my mom, she died from lung cancer. Mama never smoked. Daddy used to smoke, so I figure more or less secondhand smoke. My father died 10 years before my mom from renal failure, so it's not even lung cancer killed my daddy. And I watched the cancer suck my mom down to bones. And I realized that I wasn't working because nobody was employing anybody. And because I refused to take, you know what, nobody took me either. Even to work from home, because I didn't take, you know what, I couldn't work from one a yard, as we'd say in Jamaica. Anyway, I watched my mom dwindling down, turning into skin and bones. And I realized I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't sleeping. And so my same friend from seminary, she reached out to somebody and I started doing counseling. You know what I found out? I was going through anticipative grieving. I was grieving my mother's death before the lady even died. Now, grieving and depression mimics each other. And so it looked like depression. And as I shared in the one about spiritual support, that I wrote about depression and said, go and get counseling. And I'm not saying go talk, though. If your pastor is a counselor, kudos, even better. But go to somebody who is trained to deal with this situation. Because guess what? They see things that other people don't see. The same way that God will reveal things to the pastor is the same way God will use the training that the counselor has done to reveal exactly what you're going through. And so I did about maybe 10 sessions, I can't even remember, with this counselor. It was a Zoom session in Jamaica. And that person also went to the seminary that I went to. And the thing about it is that I found out that it was anticipative grieving, anticipating mama death, and mama never dead yet. I also did around I told my doctor, and she said, you have to do counseling here in Canada, just to, and I'm like, fine. And they said that I had adjustment disorder. I find it hard to adjust to certain life changes. And I went through it. They offered me drugs. I'm like, heavens, no way I'm taking no drugs for this. I am going to do this the hard way, dealing with what's happening to me mentally, process it and go through. Because everything that happens in our lives, whether we're Christian or not, whether we believe it or not, is for us to bring somebody else through it. To say, hey, I did counseling, this is what I did, this is what I did. And this is how I came out on top. And I'm not saying those who take drugs or whatever for depression, I'm not trying to knock you, so don't get me wrong. That's your choice. I chose not to because I didn't want to become dependent on anything, nothing at all. And so after the cancer came back the second time around, and I realized, guess what? I'm not sleeping. I'm not sleeping anymore. I think about it a whole lot, and I'm just going through my days like. And so I decided, you know what? I did a test in the doctor's office, fill out a form, something about anxiety disorder. Yes, I was told that in Jamaica. When I fainted in the bank I was working, I was under a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, and I internalized it. And I passed out right in the bank, fainted right in the bank. But luckily, it was after work and they had to rush me to the doctor to get some days off. And so the doctor says when I get overwhelmed, I'm liable to faint because my body system is shut down. And this is what I tried to prevent. And when I realized this was happening after the cancer came back the second time, I just said, you know what, Opal, you just need to step back. And so I told the doctor, and based on the form, because they let you fill out a form, a talked about depression and anxiety. And based on what I filled out there and then, he spoke about anxiety disorder and maybe severe depressed or severe depression. I can't even remember because I just read the paper and brought it home and put it down somewhere in my home office. And then I remember the company that I work with, they were telling us that they offer counseling service. But I'm like, yeah, they offer counseling service. Then it came back to my mind. They offer counseling service, you better go. And so you had the option to choose whether you want male or female, whatever it is. And that's how I started the counseling. And guess what? Don't make nobody bash you because you got counseling. It is important to have a neutral party because sometimes our family members really don't want to hear us tell them the same thing over and over. And let me speak English. Sometimes our family members don't want to hear the same thing over and over. Doesn't matter how much they love you, they get tired. And Jamaican people are very blunt. How much time you gonna tell me the same something? You tell me already. This is how we are. And we don't mean anything by it. But in other words, they don't want to hear the same thing. But when you go counseling, you talk about it, and 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 you talk about it. And it helps to get it off your chest. Because it's either that, or you're going to kill yourself, or you're going to kill somebody. And that's the reality. And I look forward to counseling because I get to talk about things that I may not tell anybody. Yeah, my friend from primary school, I will tell her a lot of stuff, but it's during counseling that some little something come up and you just talk about it because guess what? After you finish a counseling session, that's done. After you've done the 10 or 12 session, that is it. That's done and you move on with your life. So don't bash counseling. Go and talk about what you're going through, right? If you can't afford a counselor, here in Canada, thanks be to God, you can get a free one. But even the other countries that you're from, if they don't have a counselor, some pastors are counselors. Some pastors can recommend a counselor, which of course is because of for them job, you have to go pay them, right? But that's why you have like grief counseling at the schools. Even the schools, you have grief counselors because when a child dies, and especially when a classmate dies, the kids need counseling. Kids need counseling. Much more us adults that have to deal with so much stress, the stress in our workplace, stress in our personal life. It's a whole heap of stress. So let us not bash counseling. Make we go get some counseling. Deal with what you go through because it helps you. It's not for the counselor, it's for you to sort out your brain. And the counselor will see little things and little trends and say, hey, I noticed this trend, this and this and this, because this is the second time I'm hearing that I have adjustment disorder. So in other words, when certain things happen, I may not adjust easily. So what may I go do? May I have to go sit down and start passing things up? Because the reality of the matter is life is going to give us some very hard knocks. Very hard knocks. And we have to learn how to adjust. And we might not know how to. My sister, she lives in Ontario and she works with special kids. And she gives me little tips and bits. She might not counsel, but she gives me little tips and bits how to handle my 7 and 5-year-old, some of the things to do, because I don't know everything. And anybody claim to know everything, them a tell lie. So the counselors can give you little tips and bits, little things that you can work on, because that's what the counselor did. When the marriage ended, they gave me little tidbits to work on. So every time when I looked in my bank account back then and I saw that I had no money, and the fact that I was married and I was man and woman paying all the bills, and I look at the bank account and the money not in it, and every time I think for dislike my ex-husband, me remember she said to me, say, I forgive him, I release him. And that's how I could have forgive him. That's how I could have move on and work myself out of the debt and live. So I'm just saying, counselors see things that you and I can't see, you and I might never, ever see. So don't bash them. They are trained to see what you and I never see. And there are things that will, just the same way sometimes you're talking about something and something come up is the same way. While you're talking to them, that they can see trends, or they can suggest or recommend little books you can read, videos, whatever it is. So let us as Black people, whether it be African American, Caribbean, visible minority, whatever. And it's not only Black people, there are other nations of people who not go counsel because them feel the boy it's not for them. Nobody fool yourself. It is for everybody. The Bible says, seek wise counsel. Wise counsel. Solomon, most of those kings had counselors. So make we seek counselors today. So I encourage you today, as you're going through whatever you're going through, seek counsel. Wise counsel. Nobody try go through this yourself because it's hard. This is the Literacy and Me podcast. Opal McKnight Clients are here. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Literacy and Me. Remember, overcoming breast cancer is possible without fear, stigma, or compromise. Find more tips on our YouTube channel.